The companies caught up in this. It's not just Binance and FTX.
There are a lot of questions about what this means outside of FTX.com. What does it mean for FTX US, for example? FTX Ventures, which has exposure to companies like Skybridge. We know that's Anthony Scaramucci's firm. What about the companies that it really started to save out of the crash? Voyager, BlockFi, even companies you might have forgotten that they had exposure to at FTX US, like IEX. So companies across the industry, you mentioned Robinhood, that was really smart to point out as well, because FTX itself is a very lean company globally. It's just a couple hundred people, but their tentacles across TradeFi and DeFi are huge, and a lot of calls flying around right now on what this means.
And the movement that we're seeing today, is it concerns about the deal not going through, given the caveat of we have the ability to pull out at any discretion at any moment, or there more liquidity and maybe some other broader systemic issues within the crypto space?
So remember a couple of months back even, we thought that this was over, the liquidity issues. So yes, the liquidity issues themselves, and the idea here that you have CZ over at Binance tweeting and saying that a lot of this is there is a significant liquidity crunch. That statement itself is an issue for the industry. But then you also have, to your point, this is a non-binding letter of intent. What CZ is saying too, very, very publicly or on Twitter, is the FTT token will be very volatile as this plays itself out.
Yeah.
But you do see the contagion across the industry in terms of pricing because of that worry about liquidity.
Talk about that a little bit more. I don't want to get too into speculation here, but when you hear the word liquidity crunch, it raises two questions. First of all, is this because people were trying to sell and trying to basically move out of this area, move out of this market? Or is there something a little bit more structural that is specific to FTX itself?
Two things. One, think about what CZ had said just a couple of days ago in selling the FTT token at scale. He said at that point over the weekend that would take time, but you knew you would have a massive seller in the market already.
But he was a massive seller, but more importantly, he communicated that publicly.
Correct.
And a lot of people say that actually precipitated or actually led to the further sell-off that we saw.
And, you know, there's a lot of theorizing here. There was a story a couple days before that over in a trade publication just talking about the interrelationship between the FTT token and Alameda, which is Sam Bankman-Fried's entity. So you do have a lot of questions about the interconnectedness here, what it meant for FTX, why it caused any sort of potential liquidity crunch over at FTX.com itself. I think one other question that is looming across the industry now is which regulator is in charge of overseeing whether this deal gets done or not. Well, they all have regulated entities in different countries.
Well, you bring up a good point of Sam Bankman-Fried saying that he was actually a proponent for legislation, and then we think in response to that, and again, Mark Palmer at BTIG writing this, that he was then tweeting CZ of, we don't like people who lobby about industry players behind our backs. Does this help or hurt regulation with these two people?
I think it forces regulators to wake up today and say what is happening to the clients of the firms right now in our jurisdictions. So, you know, they have to speed up and move fast, if you will. But
they're going to wake up today and do that. That's going to be too late for a lot of investors by the time they get up and running.
Correct. And, you know, they say they'll make them one-to-one, but what price is one-to-one? And lastly, just real quick here, remember, this is not looming quietly on a lot of folks here today. You have Sam Bankman-Fried and Ryan Salem, one of his deputies, as two of the largest political donors in the country on the eve of midterms. You couldn't...
To say that there are a lot of tentacles into the story might be the understatement of the day. Sonali, I got to go. Sonali, Basak, all over this, and we'll keep you abreast of it here.